were pawn shops that you can see on TV. The fact that we work for American Jewelry and Loan makes our position unique. They became famous for their fight on TV, but the real trouble began when the cameras stopped running. Lee's Gold lost $500,000. It was a scam. Ashley, his daughter, quit the family business. One cast member now makes $900,000 a year from OnlyFans. Now, after 15 years, the truth about the Gold family's hidden fights, the fake scenes, and the other cast members is finally coming out. A TV director named Richard Dominic was watching The Jerry Springer Show in 1998 when he saw an ad from Detroit. It had a pawn shop owner called Lee's Gold in it. Lee's had a sharp voice, a strong stance, and an attitude that stayed with you. He was still in Dominic's mind, but nothing happened right away. That short TV moment didn't become a real show for another 10 years. By 2009, TRU-TV had finally agreed to do it. He would get cameras in his pawn shop if people had less cash. The plan didn't go over well with his family. They weren't sure if they wanted to show their customers and their daily lives on national TV. They kept going though. Hardcore Pawn first aired on August 16, 2010. 2 million people watched it on its first night. That made it the most watched first episode of any real TV show ever. People in Detroit already knew about the store, which was called American Jewelry and Loan. It opened in the Green 8 shopping center for the first time in 1978. It moved to a huge 50,000 square foot building on 8 Mile Road in 1993. About 1,000 people went through its doors every day. What really happened inside was shown on the show. The customers were mad. There were fights. Officers of the law had to step in. Some people made violent threats, while others were dragged out and yelled at. The whole thing was caught on film. In Pawn Stars, the focus was on rare items and calm deals. But in Hardcore Pawn, there was real anxiety. Lee's Gold said it was real. He thought the show showed people what it was really like to work in a pawn shop in a city where money was tight and tempers were high. That method worked. By June 2013, more than 3 million people watched each episode of the show. 3.4 million people watched the last episode of Season 6 when it finished. That was the most people who had ever watched real TV. It also became the most popular unscripted show on television on Tuesdays. But nothing stays the same forever. Things began to change in 2014. People weren't watching as much as they used to. Ratings kept going down during Season 9. Some viewers started to doubt that the show was as true as it said it was. Some scenes looked like they were staged. The New York Post even questioned whether or not the show was real. The Gold family said nothing was true. The worry stayed though. At the same time, Rich Pyle, who was one of the shop's most well-known faces, left to lead a new National Geographic show called Meltdown. It seemed like the show was starting to fall apart even more after he left. Behind the scenes, TRU-TV was making plans for a big change. As of May 2013, Chris Lynn took over as head of the network. He thought that the station was focusing too much on fights. Something lighter was what he wanted. He said there would be a complete makeover in April 2014. Now the focus was on funny things. The network knew what they wanted to do next after Impractical Jokers, which was already a hit. By October 2014, True TV had started a campaign called Way More Fun, and changed its name to the new True TV for a short time. That plan did not work with serious reality shows. All of the cast members went their own ways after the show finished. Many businesses were still having a hard time in 2021 after the pandemic, but Lee's Gold was growing. In Southgate, Lincoln Park, and Hazel Park, he opened 3 new pawn shops. It wasn't a quick move. Les had already said in 2019 that he wanted to progress past Detroit's 8 Mile Road. The plan was all set. The time was just right. It had been decades since the costs of commercial real estate had dropped so much. The owners of the properties were eager to make deals. It was hardest to make deals with Southgate and Lincoln Park. There were talks that went on for months. Les didn't send someone else to take care of them. He stepped in and closed the deals in person. With the help of his son Seth, he was able to get good lease terms because of their TV fame. The builders wanted well-known names to get people to come in. They got that from Les. The new stores were set up the same way as the first store in Detroit, which was 50,000 square feet. Their main goal was to negotiate directly with customers. The same method that made Hardcore Pawn a hit on TRU TV was used here. The shops created almost 200 jobs in Wayne County. Years before that, in late 2016, Les did something unexpected. He went on the Food Network show Chopped and Cooked. No one thought a pawn shop owner would be in a tough cooking competition, but Les had learnt to cook in Detroit when he was a child. His parents worked long hours at the pawn shop his grandfather owned, so he had to cook his own food. He made more than just simple food. Traditional recipes from the Mediterranean were given to him by his grandfather. Those stayed with him. Les used those skills to wow the judges on Chopped. He dealt with the cooking task like it was a business deal. Quick thinking, making choices, and not getting scared. Even though he didn't win, he showed a whole new side of himself. In December 2022, Les held an auction for a good cause inside their main store in Detroit. To get money for the Heat and Warmth Fund. Hardcore Cold was the name of the event. He raised $40,000 in just 3 hours. He auctioned off 25 things that local celebrities and sports stars had given him. The most valuable prize was a signed Red Wings shirt that brought in $7,800. How did Les run the auction? Just like he runs his business. He made quick deals, put direct pressure on them, and took risks. People who were there said he ran the room from beginning to end. Les added the last $5,000 himself when the total reached $35,000. There was no news or attention, just activity. It was clear to him that this wasn't just about money. It had to do with getting people through the Michigan winter. That the company was bankrupt came from a story in 2018 about a bad business deal. Les had been scammed out of $500,000, but it didn't make him bad. His net worth stayed the same at $5 million by 2025. There were still pawn shops open. For what it's worth, his book was the 4th best-selling book in the New York Times. In 2009, Seth Gold didn't just take a job at American Jewelry and Loan because it was in the family. He came in with a different attitude. Les, his dad, had run the store for many years. But Seth saw something that his dad didn't see. The company did not have an online footprint. There was a gap there at a time when everything was getting digital. Seth chose to fix it. It was his idea to start their first online store. It was a dangerous move at the time. There were still a lot of pawn shops that only took walk-in customers. But Seth thought the idea was good. It paid off in the end. They sold a lot more online. As of 2018, 30% of the business's income came from its internet side. That change not only made the store more money, it also changed how it ran. The shop front was only open 9 hours a day. The online shop was open all the time. Their growth gave them speed. They added new stores in Pontiac and Hazel Park. The business was now on track to grow 20% each year. Their total income rose to between $5 and $10 million. That was a big step for a pawn shop in Detroit. That wasn't all Seth did. At the Pawn Expo in Las Vegas on July 17, 2013, he was named National Pawn Broker of the Year. It was the biggest award in the business. He didn't just get it from sales. He tried to change how people thought about pawn shops. He pushed for better news coverage, more community involvement, and more up-to-date ways of doing business. There was another reason why the award was unique. His father had given in to him. Les Gold was a star in the business, but Seth was now seen as the leader of the future. Stephen Kogler and Seth joined forces in 2014 to begin a new project. It was known as Power to the Grid. It helped people with autism get jobs. The goal was to find real work for people with certain skills. In the pawn shop, they set up a place to learn. Not just a resume was used to hire people, they were hired based on what they could do. He was one of the first people hired. He lived in Western Michigan and had a degree. He was good at photography and Photoshop, but he couldn't find regular work. He was given a chance by Seth. Because Michael worked on it, their web listings got better. That wasn't kindness. It was a smart move. Seth made it clear, it wasn't enough that these workers were doing good work. They helped the business grow. Late in 2018, Seth began making plans for a new project, a second site in Detroit. It would be different this time. It would be mostly about expensive things like watches and jewelry. The first shop on 8 Mile mostly served people who didn't have bank accounts. Seth did not want to sell to the same people. He had looked at the numbers. They were now making 3 times as much money on silver and diamonds as on gold. The desire was easy to see. It was the same focus on new tools that led to another step in 2019. Seth and PawnMate Inc. started Fast Pawn, an online service that let people renew loans or pay them back without having to go to the shop. It sped up and simplified the process. It was also in line with Seth's main goal. The pawn business needed to move into the future, but he didn't want to lose what made it work in the first place. Heather Gold has been with Hardcore Pawn since the beginning. It began on August 16, 2010, and ended on April 6, 2015. She worked at American Jewelry and Loan with her father Les and her brother Seth for 9 seasons and 162 episodes. The store was in a huge 1.5 million square foot building on Detroit's 8 Mile Road. People who watched thought it looked like a crazy fast-paced business full of fights and deals. For Ashley though, it turned into something else. By 2015, she was ready to give up. It felt the same every day. Every day she would get dressed in the same black jumper, pants and shoes and do the same things. It was her Groundhog Day moment, she said in a 2016 interview. In her heart she knew she wasn't happy anymore, because her health was getting worse, and her family life was fall apart. Ashley and Les have always had a bad relationship. On the show they fought all the time. Things were not better behind the scenes. Seth had his own thoughts about how to market, less tied to the past. She was stuck in the middle. Besides that, the cameras were always on. Every fight turned into a show. The worry grew over time. She knew she couldn't stay by the beginning of 2015. It wasn't easy to leave. This was the business her family ran. Ashley didn't just want to be known as Les Gold's daughter though. She wished she had her own life. In late 2015, she started Pawn Chick Shopping. It began online with new jewelry that she chose herself. She went all over the country to find the newest styles. At any given time, her store had about 500 things. Fashion jewelry for $15, and expensive jewelry worth up to $3,000 were sold there. In talks she said that people believed in her style. She dressed famous people. She got customers from all over the country. Her store kept getting bigger because of her. Ashley changed the name of her business to ashleygold.com in 2019. It was the same year she won the Verge Pitch Challenge put on by the Detroit Garment Group. She had already been on the Today Show, CNN, Fox News, HLN, Good Morning America, and CNN. She had made her TV fame real. In March of that year, she began a show called Pawn Chick Radio. She talked to guests about clothes and her own life every week. But she also started to talk about serious pawn in a friendly way. She didn't explain everything, but she proved what many people already thought. There were some scenes on the show that were fake. A guest named Big Daddy said in one show that he saw people being told what to say. Ashley talked about how the makers tried to make things conflictual. They wanted to argue. Hardcore Pawn was more about drama than Pawn Stars, which was about history and worth. It made the show more well-known, but it also made things more difficult. Ashley's life changed again when the pandemic hit in 2020. Schools were closed. Kids had to have their parents help them with their online classes. Ashley was a mom of 2. In 2017, they were 8 and 10 years old. By 2020 they were 13 and 15. She ran her business and helped them with school from home. She was no longer working 70 hours a week. She wasn't filming episodes all the time. She helped with chores and drove the carpool now. She had made plans for her life that let her spend time with her family. Rich Pyle worked at American Jewelry and Loan in Detroit for 25 years. He began working for the company when he was young and stayed with it as it grew. He was one of the most well-known people on Hardcore Pawn by 2012. It was his spiked hair, long beard, and sure of himself that made him stand out. Things changed though that same year. On the show, what seemed like a small fight turned out to be the start of a much bigger problem. There were big worries after an internal report. It looked like Rich might have used work credit cards to buy things for himself. Some news stories said he also lied about refund claims. While the cameras were rolling, Les Gold talked to him. Rich didn't hold back. He said that his years of service should be more important than any mistake. He said he cared about the business more than Seth and Ashley, Les's own children. Things got worse because of that. He was told to leave the store right away by Les. In just a few intense minutes, their 25-year friendship came to an end on video. The next morning, Rich came back. The month was October 2012, and he wished for another chance. He got there early and looked scared. He wanted to say sorry and keep his job. Seth set up a meeting to try to help. He told Les that they needed Rich's skills and the way he talked to people. Les wouldn't change his mind though. He said the shop couldn't risk anything because of the audit. The meeting was over in less than 20 minutes. Rich was no longer working for the company. Soon after that, he was taken off the show. It was after he left Detroit that he went to Los Angeles. He opened his own gold business, but it didn't last long. Then he did something strange in 2018. He became the host of a show called Whole Nation, which went on the road with the American Cornhole organization. Rich brought the same excitement from the pawn shop to cornhole. He was in charge of the ACO Game Zone tasks and made people happy at events. His wife Tracy helped film the show, which made it feel like a small family-run business, just like the pawn shop. A sport that most people had never seen on TV before, helped Rich get more fans and make a name for himself. In time, Rich began to explain how serious pawn really worked from the inside. He gave hints that a lot of the drama was planned without breaking his contract. There were people outside the store who were given scenes to act out, he said. They would make them sign forms letting them go and do what they were told. Someone from Detroit even said that the store wasn't stocked enough on purpose so that customers would get mad. A few of the rare things that were shown on the show were also fakes. They were found online, and people were brought in to make it look real. Rich agreed that real deals did still happen, but by 2013 and 2014, most of the big fights were fake or acted out. People liked the show because of it, but it wasn't the whole truth. There was no plan for Bobby Janiak to become a reality TV star, just get him a job. He joined American Jewelry and Loan during the first season of Hardcore Pawn, and had no idea that the shop would soon be on national TV. Seth Gold hired him to do basic work with goods, mostly with t-shirts. They were already setting up cameras when Bobby walked in though. From the start, he was going into something much bigger than shopping. The more the shooting went on, the more Bobby was involved. What began as work in the background slowly turned into regular time in front of the screen. He quickly changed. He had a lot of drive. When Rich Pyle left the show, Bobby stepped in to fill the void. The producers didn't waste any time. They asked him if he wanted to be in more stories. Yes, he said. His job changed because of that choice. Even after the movies stopped in 2015, Bobby stayed at the pawn shop until 2016. He didn't look back after he left though. He never went back to the store again. Over time, Bobby started telling people what was really going on behind the scenes. He talked about how the show put drama over reality in talks and on social media. There really was a pawn shop, but the way it was shown often wasn't. Bobby said that the organizers knew what they were doing. There is friction, conflict and strong personalities. Pay was very low. People in the cast like him helped bring in millions of people, but not everyone made the same amount of money. The Gold family did well, the rest of the group did not. Bobby said that when producers talked about contracts, they would say things like once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to avoid having to raise wages. It was about being seen over being fair. He also talked about how group members had to live up to their roles even when the cameras were off. That fuzzy line was getting old. He even talked about firing Rich Pyle in one of his popular TikTok videos, which suggested that what happened behind closed doors was often worse than what was shown on TV. Bobby found something better after he quit the pawn shop. In 2017, Bars Products, a well-known name in car care, got in touch with him. They needed a spokesman. Bobby was a great choice because he was comfortable on camera and had a lot of charm. He would make $175,000 a year, which is more than twice as much as he did at the pawn shop. He went to trade shows and was in more than 30 ads as the face of the brand. That partnership not only gave him a steady income, but it also gave him a stage. He was using social media to spread the word about the business even more. By 2019, his support grew quickly, and the plan worked. Helped get Bars products sold in over 40,000 shops across the country. In 2021, things changed once more. Bobby changed directions in a way that no one saw coming. After doing audio work for radio stations in Michigan, he made an OnlyFans account with inappropriate material. It had over 15,000 members, paying almost $30 a month in 3 months. Many people who like extreme porn felt let down by the move. People quickly spoke out against it, mostly on Facebook and Reddit. He didn't give up though. He told a show host that voiceover work wasn't making enough money for him. Payments were not always made. There weren't many chances. Fans, on the other hand, gave them both power and money. It was a business choice that he stood by. Then there was trouble with the law. Warner Brothers Discovery, which owns TRTV, sent Bobby a letter telling him to stop in September 2023. The paper was 12 pages long. It said he used show footage and logos on his personal website and social media without approval. They gave 37 detailed examples, such as videos he used in a YouTube show where he talked about old episodes. More than 500,000 people watched that show in just 3 months. Bobby had even put screenshots on flyers for public speaking gigs, where he could make up to $5,000 per show. Warner Brothers made it clear that he did not own the show's material. By November, Bobby had taken down all of his online pages that mentioned serious pawn. At American Jewelry and Loan, everything changed in March 2012. Joel Big Joe Shannon had been in charge of security for 3 years. He was believed in. Les Gold hired him himself, and even asked him to family events. He stole though, and hidden cams caught him. It never happened. Every time, he took a small amount of scrap gold, just enough so that no one would notice right away. This went on for a few weeks, but all of it came to about $7,000. During season 6, the arrest was caught on video. While the movie was being filmed, police walked into the shop and arrested Shannon in front of Les. When Les says, "This is my loyal head of security that I trust," you can hear it in his voice. He was shocked. The lie. It hit hard. Shannon lost her job right away, and was charged with illegal theft. The people didn't like it, and it changed the show. Big Joe didn't go away, though. He began again. He started a business in Livonia, Michigan, called High Gear Transportation at the end of 2016. At first, there were only 2 trucks making supplies in the area. He turned it into a regional business over time. The business had 15 trucks by 2023, and served customers all over the Midwest. Shannon kept in touch with the Gold family in some small way, after everything they went through. Since 2019, Seth Gold has been hiring High Gear for delivery jobs between stores. It took time to rebuild trust. They got it done in almost 3 years. Shannon has hired more than 20 people now, and has become a well-known Livonia business owner.
What began as an incident turned into a story about how people can change. There was also Fielding Takeman, who was also known as Felix. A lot of people liked him because he was always ready to step in and keep things cool, but he stopped being on the show without giving a reason in early 2015. Something went wrong with the deal behind the scenes. Felix asked for a rise when they were talking about season 8. As his role and fame grew, he wanted a bigger salary. The film company said no, and things got tense. Takeman left the set of a movie in February 2015. The group was thrown into chaos. They hadn't planned to get someone else in here so quickly. He later paid a lawyer to try to start talks again, but the show had already ended. There were new security guards. The makers weren't going to look back. He had moved to Austin, Texas by 2016. He turned down interviews and stayed out of the public eye. He was ready to move on from that part of his life. He did it. These were not parts of a TV show. They were real people who did real things. The intense scenes and tense situations were written, but these stories showed what really happened when hiding wasn't an option anymore.